Hello and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. This one is player rankings with myself and George from Ingenuity Fantasy. If you don't know about Ingenuity Fantasy, then check them out, ingenuityfantasy.com. The link is in the description to the video. All sorts of good stuff on there. They have match stats from Opta. They've got articles from various people about captaincy, differentials, etc. They've got a transfer planner, which is really cool. If you know that you want a midfielder, for example, you just put in what position you need, you put in what price, and it ranks the players in order of who you should be looking at. And then there's these player rankings that we are discussing today. So we're going to go through 6 categories and rank our top 10 in each category. So it is budget defenders, premium defenders, budget mids, budget forwards, premium forwards. So let's get into it.
Hi guys, welcome back to another edition of FPL player rankings. Quite a lot of time since the last one has passed, but nonetheless we will jump straight in. So we'll start off with cheap defenders. Now, I understand a lot of people are worried about Wolves in general, but I mean, you know, Nuri, given where he's playing on the pitch, given the fixtures he has, hard not to put at the one spot.
Yeah, the fixtures are just a joke. We've talked about it the last couple weeks. Hence why I've got Semedo so high as well. I just think that their fixtures are incredible compared to most other teams. Like Bournemouth's fixtures are also quite good. Hence, 2 of their players pretty high on my list. They're the 2 really. Apart from that, there isn't any other team that has like unbelievable fixtures. So, given that the Bournemouth fullbacks, or Kirkes at least, is premium, fullbacks for Wolves are naturally higher.
Yeah, because I was going to say, actually, I think, you know, Semedo, I mean, you've got Semedo quite high. You've got Semedo at number 3. For me, I just think, given how bad Wolves' defence is, I think, you know, Nuri is only at 1 because his attacking output and his attacking potential is absolutely ridiculous. I think Semedo, you know, given he doesn't have that super attacking element to get. I mean, he can get forward. You know, he got an assist the other day, but he doesn't have that, you know, sort of attacking flair that Nuri has, and doesn't occupy the same positions. And I think so. He suffers more as a result of playing for Wolves' defence.
Yeah, I do get what you mean. To be fair, he's just in a back 5. He's going to be more attacking than most defenders, even if it isn't as attacking as Nuri. So I still don't mind him. He's going to take up some good positions. Yes, he's not as good as Nuri, and the difference is only like 0.2 million. So I mean, get Nuri over Semedo, obviously.
Yeah. And then Newcastle defenders. So I mean, you haven't gone for any Newcastle defenders. I imagine there's probably, you know, in no small part down to how much of it's up in the air. You know, we're not entirely sure who'd be starting where. We don't know, like, injuries will shake out. But for me, I think the 2 we can bank on are Burn and Livramento, at least for now. I mean, Trippier, I think a lot of Newcastle fans are pretty done with him, to be honest. I mean, he was a great servant to the club, but, you know, his performances the last couple of games have been absolutely shocking. And I think, you know, Livramento's come back after, you know, having a tiny bit of a break. And, you know, he's just back to where he needs to be. And I think, you know, given how pivotal this season for us is in terms of keeping Isak and keeping Bruno and needing a strong finish, I don't think we have time to do Make-A-Wish Foundation run-outs for Kieran Trippier that much more. So I personally can't see us, you know, I can't see Livramento not getting starting minutes, and Burn has been our best defender this season, and I can't see him not getting starting minutes either. And the reason they're both in my list is because our fixtures, you know, in the next 5, we've got West Ham, and then we've got Brentford at home, then Leicester, then Man United, then Crystal Palace. You know, these are all bottom half teams. And yeah, I think pretty good fixtures, given how good our defence was when we did play bad teams.
Yeah, I mean, if the minutes are good, then they are very good options. This is all assuming that you can get through 29 as well. Like, if you're, say, on free hit on 29, then yeah, load up on Newcastle players, don't get me wrong. But these are potentially guys to wait for until game week 30 maybe, or on your wild card if you're wildcard in 30, 31, like a lot of people are. But yeah, in general, the fixtures are really, really good. So if they do have good minutes, then I do like them. The one thing we don't know about is Lewis Hall and what's going on there. If Lewis Hall is injured for quite a while, then Livramento is a great option, like a really good option. But even if he's not out for a while, Livramento probably is the better right back anyway. So yeah, I mean, I like him.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. I think, given that Newcastle do blank in 29, now is probably not an optimum time to bring them in unless you're free hitting in 29. But, the reason they are on this list is because Newcastle do double in 32 as well, which is in 5 games' time. So the fixtures do even out. But, at the same time, that means that if you were to get them after 29, then you've got a nice juicy double there where, only a couple of teams double. So, that would probably be the best entry point if you were going to go grab Newcastle defenders. And then so also speaking of we mentioned Palace briefly, teams who are doubling in 32. Tyreek Mitchell, for me, I just think Munoz is an absolute freak in terms of how attacking he is. His output is the positions he finds himself in. His output is absolutely unbelievable. And again, it's kind of similar to the Nuri Semedo situation. I think Mitchell is the one who is more of a prisoner of the defence he plays for, given that the guy on the opposite side is the attacking freak who gets into the final third. So I think for me, that's why I can't really see Mitchell, featuring, especially given the blank in 29.
Yeah, he definitely isn't as attacking as Munoz. I mean, not many players are, not many defenders are, not many midfielders are, to be honest. He's a joke. But Mitchell does still get a bit further forward. I mean, when Eze plays, it's a little bit more difficult because Eze likes to take up this kind of left pocket as such, which doesn't really happen on the right. Munoz is the attacking outlet on the right, so it's not quite the same for Mitchell. But I just kind of like Palace's fixtures. I mean, it's Ipswich at home this week for starters, then it's Southampton after the blank. So if you can get through the blank, then I do like them. Munoz is a player that probably, we'll talk about him, but if you can hold him, I would, just because you want him for that game week 30 fixture. Yeah, I just like Palace at the moment. I think they're playing really well. I mean, maybe I'm biased because I had Glasner in the assistant manager chip, and he did very well for me. But yeah, I'm just a big fan of Palace. And if there was other teams who had much better fixtures, so let's say like Forest had really good fixtures, then Mitchell would be lower down. But there just isn't any other teams apart from Bournemouth and Wolves that are really sticking out.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue with that, really. I think also, as we found ourselves getting slightly lower down the list this week, there isn't maybe the plethora of options that we had earlier in the season, just because quite a few have now moved up to premium. Earlier in the season we had the likes of Halls and Kirkez's here, but as they move up to premium, I think you do see the list thinning out a little bit in the cheap section. So yeah, I definitely don't hate the inclusion. So then, speaking, of that premium section, and speaking of, Munoz in particular, you see Munoz slot in at 5 on both of our lists. That is in no small part down to, just how brilliant the guy is, how far forward he gets. As Brad said, Palace aren't doing too much. Aren't doing too badly. There's not too much that needs to be said about Munoz. I think by now everyone should know exactly what they're getting.
Yeah, outrageously attacking. He plays as a right winger, basically. I just noticed that his price is wrong in George's list, but on my list it is correct. But yeah, he is just ridiculous. I mean, he's scoring goals for fun at the moment as a defender. It's kind of a situation where clean sheets are a bonus for him because he looks so likely to get an attacking return in any given game that yeah, clean sheets are just a bonus. And if there were 2 fixtures to get a clean sheet in, it's Ipswich and Southampton. So yeah, if you can hold him through the blank, then do.
Yeah, I would genuinely say he's one of the, if you aren't going to free hit in 29 but you have him in your team, I would say he's one of the ones to hold.
Yeah.
there's only a couple of players who occupy that sort of territory, but he's right up there with them just because of how good those fixtures are. So yeah, I mean, absolute brilliant player, Munoz. But then also, just after the blank isn't even a bad entry point either, because they have, the double coming up. So yeah, I'm struggling to see much reason anyone should go without him after the blank. So yeah, just try and get Munoz in. You'll be rewarded. And then next, so Gvardiol. You've got Gvardiol quite high. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Gvardiol. I think I just need, a little bit more proof from City. They seem to be back, and he seems to be in the right areas. But yeah, and he does occupy, that sort of forward third area of the pitch quite frequently. But yeah, I think I just have a few doubts about City on the other end.
Yeah, it's more since Marmoush's come in. Like Gvardiol has been playing like a left midfielder at times. So I really, really like the positions he's taken up. Whether we see that continue, I'm not so sure. I mean, we should, because Marmoush has been really good, and Haaland's not going to not play. So I don't see another way that they fit. So we should see it continue. Another good thing about Gvardiol is that one of the better fixtures in Game Week 29, the fixtures in Game Week 29, a lot of them aren't the best, but City do play Brighton at home, which is one of the better fixtures. So he's not a bad player to have for that week. And then straight after that week, you've got Leicester at home. So I think he's just a very useful kind of player to have over that period, especially as quite a lot of people will probably be looking to sell Trent, given that he blanks. Potentially they'll be looking to sell him, potentially they'll carry him through, but some will sell. If you want to generate a bit of funds to make moves elsewhere, then I quite like a Trent to Gvardiol move in Game Week 29.
Yeah, definitely a good shout. And City's fixtures are starting to clear up as well. So we all know how many goals City can put past teams on their day, and we also know that Gvardiol is more than capable of being part of that. So definitely a good option there. And then so Konate, I've got Konate at 9. You're still slightly untrusting of Konate's minutes. Then you still think our good friend Jarell Kwanzaa is going to make an appearance at some point?
Well, it's not even so much that necessarily. Yes, I partly do think that. I partly just think when we look at a 5-game week period, I don't even necessarily trust Konate to stay fit for 5 game weeks, really. But also, Liverpool play Champions League as well, so it's not just Premier League fixtures they need to think about. If there was going to be games to potentially rest him, maybe it's Southampton at home this week. Who knows? The fixtures are very nice, though, I will say. Southampton at home, then they've got a blank. Everton, Fulham, West Ham, Leicester. But Liverpool are one of the teams where we're looking at a 5-game week period where they've only got 4 fixtures. So, yeah, that's another reason he's not there.
Yeah, it's fair. And also, I think, if the title race was a bit tighter, I think, and they have to play their best team week in, week out, then, I think you look at more of the same squad being rinsed and repeated. But I think Liverpool have a big enough lead that, they are able to sort of spread their resources or, do some rotations so that they can compete in other cups as well, as you say, like the Champions League. So I think, given the sort of gap they now have to second place, they've all but wrapped up the league. I think, rotation is definitely more plausible. And I mean, that's why I've got him so low, because I think he would be the one on the block for that rotation. And then finally, so Cucurella. I mean, I had previously championed Cucurella in my premium list. I think for me, the only thing with Cucurella, I was also someone that brought in Cucurella for a bit. I thought I'd try and stand on my laurels, but I didn't bring him in during the best period of time. And for me, I think other than Southampton, which almost doesn't count as a game, Chelsea hadn't kept a clean sheet since game week 17. So he's just never been near the top of my list, near the top of my memory when it comes to making these lists anymore. Got a bit PTSD about him, even if he does occasionally score a load of points.
Yeah, the Chelsea defence isn't good at all. Like, really isn't good. So if you're paying a premium for a player in that defence, then they've got to have some attacking threat, which he does, to be fair. He plays in this stupid 8/10 position that I don't really get why he plays there, but he does. So we have to think about it. The fixtures are a bit of a weird one though. So it's Leicester at home this week, then it's Arsenal away. So great fixture, terrible fixture. But then in this 5 game week period, they've also got Ipswich at home. So if you can, he's not someone you necessarily want to be starting every week, which is why you maybe wouldn't want to pay 5.1 million for him. But I do think he can get you a few returns.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong. I think, just a bit of PTSD. And you're right, the positions he is occupying are pretty good. So, definitely not a bad option. But do not rely on him for clean sheets at all. Okay, cool. That rounds out the Defenders segment of the video. Let us know what you think of our lists. Let us know if there's anyone we missed. And we will see you again for the Midfielders. Right, and welcome back to the midfielder segment, and we will kick off straight away with the cheap mids. I think a good place to start, actually, you'll notice a name missing from the top of me and Brad's list who has been there the last couple of weeks, and that is Dango. So Dango has dropped out of my list altogether, and he's gone down to 9 for Brad, and that is in no small part due to the return of Evan Nilsson. I think, given Evan Nilsson was the starting striker there before, he's actually got some minutes recently in the Cup. So, yeah, I think there's just too much doubt over Dango's minutes at the moment for him to be a legitimate inclusion into any team at the moment.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere a little bit that Evan Nilsson came back.
It did.
I think he came back a little bit earlier than everyone expected. Well, at least FPL players anyway. So yeah, I mean, it just affects Dango. It really does. I mean, the fixtures are still really good, and I think Dango is good enough that he will still get some minutes. So that's why he still makes my list, albeit at number 9. But yeah, I can't have him up there with Cliver and Semenyo, given that he won't be starting up front every game now.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you are still looking for an entry point to Bournemouth, it is now Cliver or Semenyo. There's just too much risk around Dango. And then, so also another player that you've been championing a fair amount, Eze. Now, I had Eze closer to the start of the season, and he came back and he proved it a little bit, but then he sort of ran a bit dry again. Now I know you quite like Palace, but I'm still just a bit unconvinced by Eze, and personally I know that Mateta being out means that Eze might be on pens, but I also think it really hurts Palace going forward as well. So Eze, just not entirely convinced by him for me, but I completely understand the reasons for it.
Yeah, I do like Palace, and with Eze it's always just about whether he's going to be fit or not. He'll randomly not be in the squad one week and you'll find out he's got an injury, then he'll randomly be back out of nowhere. You can't really predict when he's going to be fit or not, but when he is just really good. And yeah, that does mean that the Mateta injury means that Eze now gets penalties, but like you say, it is a bit of a balance. I mean, Mateta being out does make Palace worse, but I just think that Eze on pens, that gain is better than the loss from Mateta being out, personally, for Eze as an FPL asset anyway. Yeah,
it's a completely fair argument. I think for me, I think I felt probably just a bit burned by Eze as well. But yeah, again, definitely not a reason that he can be in other people's teams. Someone I do want to talk about is Minter. Now, I think I've actually found myself watching a fair amount of Brighton games, and Minter just from a threat angle just looks really, really dangerous. But now, I mean, I think also with the Matoma injury, there is now a substantial amount of that Brighton pie, which could be going to Minter. I just think he looks really dangerous at the moment. And, Brighton don't have the worst fixtures in the world either. I mean, they've got City, but then they also have Fulham at home, then Villa, then Palace, then Leicester. So I think, that run of games for Brighton is pretty good. And I think Minter could be a massive part of it.
Yeah, they seem to have found a little bit of form again as well. I mean, they got battered by Forest, I think it was, and they really didn't look good. But that Chelsea game a couple of weeks ago, They look really good in that game. They look good since that, to be honest. So
Yeah.
I do quite like him, and he has actually been getting very good minutes recently, which I didn't quite realise. I can just never really trust those wingers this season. I mean, yes, Matoma's out, but it looks like March might be back. Ruta can play on the right. Who knows what? It seems to be every single Brighton manager just tinkers a lot, but he has been good. I do agree with that. Yeah, and the fixtures aren't bad, like you say.
Yeah, I think also, part of it is down to, in no small part, like his price as well. He's on the way cheaper end of midfielders at 5 million, and I think he's going to get the lion's share of those starting minutes, especially with Matoma injured. He's got 2 goals and an assist in his last 3 games, so I think it's more a case of this is a situation to ride the hot hand with him, because I quite like Brighton's fixtures as well. And then another good talking point, and I see this is a point where there's quite a lot of contention, or quite a lot of people are bringing him in, is the sort of Neto and Nkunku situation. Now, is it the case of people moving off Palmer, and people think that Neto or Nkunku are going to provide good Chelsea cover? I think Chelsea aren't going to score 4 every week. They're not going to have Southampton at home every week, and they are just subject to quite a bit of rotation, even with some of the injuries. I don't know. I think I'm just a little bit more suspicious about Neto and Nkunku's minutes than I otherwise might be.
Yeah, I agree they're not going to play Southampton every week, but in this 5-game week period, they do play Leicester at home and Ipswich at home. So, and Tottenham at home, which arguably it's not quite the same fixture, but is also a good fixture. Neto, I just don't get how Neto doesn't start every game. I think he will now. Because Madueke is injured, Jackson's injured. Don't know the timelines on either of them, but anyway, Neto, every time he plays, he's brilliant. So it would make sense for him to play every game. Nkunku, not so much. But again, I'm just not sure that. I don't think Maresca wants to tweak things enough that he tries new formations and new kind of setups. So I think Nkunku will just be shoehorned in. So I think he does get the minutes. Chelsea attack, yes, it's been going through a bit of a rough period, but I am not too worried about it at all. I think the Chelsea attack is absolutely fine. Although I do think the period to get on both of these players was before Southampton. So I'm not sure I'd go there now.
Yeah, completely valid. And, that's another part of the reason they're low down for me. And then also you've included Sarr. Now, I think Sarr's worth talking about because a lot of people seem to have held him and start him. I saw him popping up all over people's teams on timeline. I personally had moved off him. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I just lost a bit of patience. But I think for me, I mean, Eze I understand because, he's going to be taking over penalty duties. But I can't see how Mateta's injury helps Sarr jump any higher. I know he had some returns, but I just feel like it's to some degree points chasing. And, he's had like 6 or 7 other weeks of blanking. I don't know. He's just hard to trust for me.
Yeah, I get he's hard to trust. He's blanked a lot. I do think the Mateta being out does help his minutes, just because if they're starting, let's say they were starting Mateta, Sarr, Eze as a 3, then Sarr potentially comes off for Nketiah for 20 minutes at the end. Now Nketiah will start. I'm not sure who else really would be coming on for Sarr, so I do think he gets more minutes per start. But again, I think it's just the fact that I like Palace. I like the fact they play Ipswich and then Southampton after the blank. If you can deal with that blank, then I really like keeping them. Again, I'm not sure that unless you're on free hit in 29, I'm not sure that you're buying these players this week. But yeah, if you've got Sarr and you can hold him through 29, then I absolutely would.
Yeah, it's a good point to mention. Yeah, these entry points. It's just because me and Brad, naturally cover the next 5 game weeks, which does include the double. So, yeah, now is probably not the best entry point for these Palace and Newcastle players. Right, and then on to premium mids. So you've still got. I know it's an extra game. You've still got Palmer despite some of his troubles, you've still got Palmer plugging away at number one.
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to be honest. Chelsea attack, has struggled a little bit, but their attack is still very good, as was shown against Southampton, albeit Southampton were terrible and are terrible. But they play another terrible team in Leicester. And then Ipswich. I mean, Palmer with an extra game is ahead of Salah, for me. That is the only reason he is ahead, though, is the extra fixture.
Yeah, I think for me also, I can't imagine many people at the moment are weighing up who do I bring into my team, Salah or Palmer. Anyway, I can't imagine that's a decision a lot of people are facing. So it's kind of splitting hairs as well. But I think Salah for me. I mean, it's just it would take Salah having about 3 games for me to put anyone else below him. The guy's absolutely incredible. I'm just going to keep riding that train. And then Bowen. So your own boy, Bowen. I'm going to beat you to the punch and say unlucky not to get a goal against Leicester. But you still don't fancy him as an option in there. Quite a few people seem to be jumping on him actually.
Not for that price, I think. Admittedly, with Paqueta out, Bowen probably is on penalties. But I think he needs to have better fixtures to be considered. I think with a team like West Ham, it's the same as someone like Wolves or something. I think you can only really consider these guys when they've got good fixtures. And West Ham just don't have good fixtures. I mean, Newcastle this week, not great. Liverpool is part of this 5-game week thing, Liverpool away as well. There's some nice ones, like Wolves is alright, but the fixtures just aren't good enough to warrant spending 7.4 million on Bowen, I don't think. Admittedly, if you bought him before game week, before last week anyway, then I get it, because he plays in 29 and he had Leicester at home, which was a good entry point, but now, not for me.
I just think I quite like West Ham at the moment. I mean, they seem to have got a little bit of momentum. Beating Arsenal, no, not doing it for you.
Arsenal haven't been good in the last few weeks, particularly. We did play quite well in that game. Don't get me wrong, but I just think you need really good fixtures to get on Bowen at 7.4 million. If he was like 6 million, then maybe. But that's why he's down quite low in this list. I think he hasn't got the fixtures to go there.
Fair enough. And then Foden. So, I mean, we've both got Foden fairly high. I mean, I've got him at 4, you've got him at 5. I've got him at 3, you've got him at 5. And I think that is in no small part down to... I personally really think that these City signings, Kusanovs, Marmouches and stuff, I think City look not back to their best, but, City look quite good. And I think, we've seen what Foden can do in a good City team. Not least when he's playing bad teams. He seems to absolutely dog on bad teams. And, within City's fixtures coming up, they've got Brighton at home, Leicester at home, Man United, then Crystal Palace. We've just seen in the past, we know enough about Foden, we know enough about City to know he could go off for multiple of those games.
Yeah, when Foden's getting good minutes, he's always a good option. It doesn't matter how City are playing. I mean, even when City were doing pretty bad, he was still getting quite a few hauls. I mean, like I say, when he's getting good minutes, he's always an option, and you won't find many better 2-game week runs over 29 and 30 than City's in Brighton at home, Leicester at home. So if you need a player for 29 and you're not wildcard until 31, which I do think is quite common for a lot of people, then I do like the little 2-week punt on City players in general. Yep,
completely back that. And then, just finally touching on Bruno Fernandes. Now, I mean, he remains a sort of... I mean, talismanic is an understatement for what he is for Man United at the moment. He's absolutely carrying them and putting them on his back. I am just absolutely terrified about their fixtures, If you're a Fernandes owner, it looks really scary. You've got Arsenal at home. Then they've got Leicester, which ain't too bad. But then it goes Forest, City and Newcastle back-to-back. That's just quite a torrid run for United. And it's come at a pretty bad time for them.
Yeah, the fixtures are rough. They are rough. I just back Fernandes, just keep ticking along. I mean, he's got everything you want in an FPL asset. He's on penalties, he's on a lot of set pieces, he gets 90 minutes every single week, and admittedly sometimes he might play as part of the two that are a bit deeper, but most recently we've seen him a little bit further forward, so I think you can just count on him to tick along even with these slightly tougher fixtures.
Yeah, and it's completely fair. So that rounds out the premium mids section and the midfielders in general. Let us know what you think of our list. Let us know if there's anyone we missed, and we will see you again for the forwards. Hi guys, welcome back to the forward segment, and we will get started as ever with the cheap forwards. We will start with, so near the top. I mean, Brad seems to be quite a big fan of Strand Larsen in Cunha's absence. I mean, don't get me wrong, Wolves have an excellent set of fixtures. I think for me, I just don't think he's very good. I think he is nowhere near a like-for-like change with Cunha. I think Cunha is a very special and exceptional footballer, and for me, I just can't see Strand Larsen getting anywhere near his production just on a quality of player level.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you, to be honest. I don't think he's a great player by any means, but those fixtures are way too good, way too good, and especially now that he is likely to get good minutes. I mean, he's come back from injury. I don't think he's started yet, but he's got minutes anyway. He played 45 minutes the other day, and then something else. But yeah, so he should start most of these games, and they're just too good. The fixtures too good. The stretch. I mean, Everton at home is good, not unbelievable. Then Southampton, West Ham, Ipswich, and then Tottenham. That's a joke. Yeah. So I think there's goals.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely fair. I think, again, for me, it'll just be a situation of I need to see him do it before he slides up. But one thing we have seen the return of João Pedro. Now, Brighton seem to be back, but João Pedro also back in the starting lineup, and it seems like it's his place to lose now.
Yeah, maybe. Have we seen him start with Welbeck yet in these last two?
I think he did start with Welbeck. Yeah.
Yeah, in which case maybe that is true. But the problem is Welbeck is very, very good. So Welbeck will probably play up front when he can. It's then whether João Pedro or Ruta play, I guess. And I don't think it is João Pedro's to lose necessarily. I think we could see both, not at the same time, but switching between the two. So I'm not that convinced on his minutes. But I think when he does play, he's so good that he has to be up high on the list. He's on penalties. Everything is good about him. Yep. So I don't think he gets all of the minutes over these next 5 weeks, but yeah, he'll get enough to be pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's almost exactly where I stand with him as well. And then Evan Nilsson. Now, Dango. We mentioned earlier that we're a little concerned about Dango's minutes, and that's why he fell out of our list, fell out of my list even. But I think for me, also, that worry carries over into bringing Evan Nilsson into this one. Is I have no idea how it's going to shake out for Bournemouth. I mean, Dango's more than justified keeping his place in the team, but Evan Nilsson was the starting striker there. So I just feel hesitant about putting either of them in a list right now, because I think we're genuinely potentially looking at anywhere between a 50-50 split to a 75-25 either way. We just don't know.
Yeah, I do agree. It is a situation where we do need more information on it, but again, it's also a situation where the fixtures are so good. Again, it's Tottenham, Brentford, Ipswich, West Ham, Fulham. The fixtures are just too good to ignore almost. I do think that they probably will share minutes, or Evan Nilsson plays up front, Dango might get minutes on the wing, whatever it may be. I think they'll both get some minutes, which with their fixtures is enough to just put them somewhere in this list. If we knew Evan Nilsson was going to start every game, he'd be higher up this list for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a sentiment that I'll definitely second. And then also now we move on to the period of the video where we like to give people their flowers. So this will be Brad getting his flowers for calling the Raul benching, which, to be fair, I have to admit I did not see coming. And Brad called it for the specific game week, if you watch from the previous video. So, what are the lottery numbers going to be this week?
Muniz was always there. And we know that we've seen, not actually that recently, but we did see at one point that Raul is prone to a benching and a Muniz start when the fixtures do get a bit congested. So it just seemed like that was the week that it was going to happen, to be honest. So I've been looking for a reason to put Raul further down my list, but all the time there was no other good options. He had to sit at like 4 or 5, whereas now we've actually got a few good options. So yeah, that's why he's down at 8 for me. I can't trust him to get good minutes. Even when he starts, he can come off between 60 and 70 quite a lot.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's evidence of him at minimum just being a very volatile asset. So even though he had strung those starts together, you're right. I think it was the first game he blanked in, and that seemed to be enough. So it seems like Fulham don't even have a huge amount of faith in him in general. And then finally, so we'll touch on, we touched on the Mateta injury earlier in the video. So do we see all of those minutes going directly to Nketiah? Or do we think, there's going to be some rotation going on there?
I'm not sure if they all go to Nketiah. I think he'll start. I think he'll start most games. I'm just not sure that he gets 90 every game, to be honest. I think that maybe Sarr can do that, can play up front. I don't know quite what other options they've got apart from Nketiah and potentially Sarr playing up front. So I do think he gets good enough minutes to warrant being an option. It's just we don't know how long Mateta's actually out for, which, yes, it didn't look good. But if it turns out it's maybe just a concussion and he can play again in 3 weeks or whatever it is, then Nketiah does lose his place again.
Yeah, completely valid. Yeah, I think there's also, we actually don't know how long Mateta will be out. But this is the thing with head injury. I mean, it's albeit it was quite a gnarly head injury, but it is. Those are the injuries that you can just whack something on your head and get out there and play sometimes. So that it remains to be seen. My instinct is it's not going to be a long absence for Mateta in that sense. Just from what we've seen with past head injuries. And okay, so that leads us now onto the premium forwards. Not a huge amount to talk about, really. I mean, there hasn't been a huge amount of moving or shaking from the last time we discussed it. But I think one point that is worth mentioning is Isak. So, for me, from what I know about sort of Isak and what I know about this injury, it's something that's been bothering him for a little bit, and it's been tightness in his leg. Now, do I think Isak will still get a decent amount of minutes in the Premier League? Yes. I think, if anything, the main fixture we'll be prioritising over the next few weeks will be the League Cup final. So that will be the game where, we'll probably pump Isak full of whatever painkillers he needs and, just make sure he's ready for that, and then give him reduced minutes in those Premier League fixtures. Now, not least because the Premier League fixtures are West Ham, Brentford at home, then Leicester, Man United and Crystal Palace. Now, those are games that you can rest a player like Isak in. They are, on the slightly easier end of fixtures. So, I just think even though Isak does have a 5 games and I've got Wood above him, we will see a lot of minute management for him over the next couple of weeks. So, I think if you're in the weird spot of considering buying him, I probably wouldn't be at the moment just because there's a bit too much unknown.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure that, there is many people in that situation, but I'd certainly wait until after the blank if you're thinking of doing it. But I guess it's more difficult for people that are thinking about selling him. I'm not really sure where I'd sit on that at the moment. It's difficult when you don't know his actual fitness, which has been the case for the whole season pretty much. But I just think that if he gets relatively good minutes, then he's that much of a joke that he's just worth keeping.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got money tied up in him as well. But
yeah,
also Chris Wood's fixtures do get slightly better after this week. So it's City at home this week, which admittedly it's not the worst fixture at the moment, but then it's Ipswich, United, Villa, Everton. So I do think, and especially game week 29, that is one of the better fixtures as well. Forest playing Ipswich. There isn't many fixtures that are like really good, and especially with Salah not playing, you could need a captain. So maybe Chris Wood is your captain in that week.
I was going to say Chris Wood. I think given we see this week a lot of people having to reverse their Cunha transfers or move on from Mateta, I think there is no Chris Wood. Especially given he occupies the same sort of price range, is the best option if you're moving on from Cunha or Mateta. I just think Marmoush seems a bit streaky. We've seen a hat trick in one game, but then blanks in the others. So Chris Wood is the epitome of reliable in this game. So yeah, you're right. That Forest fixture is too good to ignore. And I think Wood definitely presents as the best alternative to those two for that reason. And then we're seeing just on that subject slightly. We're seeing quite a few people nearing the debates about selling Isak or selling Gakpo, selling Mateta, selling Cunha. There's quite a lot to be done at the moment, and I imagine there was also quite a lot of people with Isak, Cunha, and Mateta, and they must be absolutely struggling. So, if you're someone with Isak, Cunha, and Mateta, do you ever see yourself moving for a Gakpo or is it a Marmoush and a Wood? Where do you stand on these? It's quite a lot of decision making at the moment.
Certainly wouldn't be going Gakpo. And well, I guess if you're free hitting in game week 29, then maybe he's an option, given that it's Southampton at home this week. Sorry, but I still don't think I'd go there. I think I'd just go with one of the cheaper guys. So one of the guys we were talking, I don't mind Strand Larson as an option generally. A Wissa, even though Wissa's fixtures aren't actually all that, could go with him. Or I'd be looking at Marmoush and Wood. I don't think Gakpo is a great option right now, personally. Yeah.
Is there a world where you try and move for Haaland?
Yes, definitely. In fact, but for most people, that comes at the cost of either Salah or Palmer. I wouldn't personally be selling Palmer. I know a lot of people are considering it, but I'm not much of a fan of it at all. Obviously, that's not this week. You'd get this week's nice fixture and then sell because Palmer has Arsenal in game week 29 and then wildcarding back. So I get it, but you'd have to be in quite a luxurious position to be doing it. The more obvious one, I guess, is Salah out, because then you can wildcard Salah back in after the blank. But again, you've probably got loads of money tied up in Salah, so that's another one where you'd have to. Again, it's quite a luxurious move, I think, unless you're happy with losing that value and buying him back for a lot more.
Yeah, I think that's the best way of summing it up. Really, is if you are going to make that move, because of how much Salah's risen in price, you're just taking quite a big hit there financially. So, I think most people will probably stray away from that, or as you say, if you do have the funds, then by all means go for it.
Or I do think if you're in a situation where you're quite far behind in the league and you're chasing big time, then maybe that is quite a good play, just because presumably quite a few other people in your league probably won't do it. So you get Haaland captain for Leicester at home, and you get Haaland captain for Brighton at home when others won't have him, which might be quite nice.
Yeah, and then you even have the option of captaining him further down the line in those Man United and Palace fixtures. So I mean it's definitely a worthwhile play, and it's definitely a high risk, high reward play. So by all means, if you are chasing, as Brad says, then that is definitely an option or a route that you can pursue. Okay, cool. That rounds out the forward segment and indeed the video. Let us know what you think of our list. Let us know if there's anyone you think we missed, and we will see you again next week.
And that is all for this one. Like I said at the start, check out ingenuityfantasy.com. All sorts of good stuff on there. The link is in the description, and I'll see you in the next one.